Hello and welcome everybody to the Specific Jawns Phillies baseball podcast, your elite source of all things Phillies baseball. It is August 4th. This is our post-trade deadline episode. I think it's going to be a good one. Hope you have been enjoying our podcast. My man Pat Barker here has really moved us up in the world. We're not only on Spotify now, but also Apple Podcasts. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share on any platform you choose. We got a lot to talk about today, Pat. How are you? I haven't been here since the All-Star game. I was at the All-Star game with our buddy Mike. Haven't had a chance to be on the cast since. Hasn't been a great couple of weeks since the All-Star game. I think you'd certainly agree with that. But again, a lot to talk about since the trade deadline. What do you got for me first? What's the biggest splash that you're just harping on today?
I don't even know anymore, man. I hate this. I hate this team. I hate the fact that, and I say that with all love in my heart. I hate the fact that I'm jealous of the guys who get the radio guys who get to do this every day, because you get to lock in on the entire Phillies roller coaster ride. And once a week is not enough, because the way you and I and all the fans feel about this team fluctuates so wildly from moment to moment. And then, God forbid, you have a situation like last week where a scheduling conflict prevented me from recording at the last second. I was ready to, they were wrapping up a 3-6 homestand. We were ready to record, and at the last second, I couldn't do it. And now I want to carry all that energy into this week, and then I watch Luis Arraez have 2 at-bats, and I'm just like, I'm looking for playoff tickets. It's so difficult to prepare for a podcast when you don't know if you're going to like or hate the thing when you hit record.
Yeah, well, hopefully fans of the podcast can be as frustrated with us as we are with the baseball team, because we are that inconsistent. But we've got a lot. Let's try to unpack the roller coaster just in a tight, say, past 10 days.
Sure.
So, like you said, 3-6 homestand against tough teams, and we knew this was coming post All-Star break. They're going to play, the Mets, division rivals. They suck, but division rivals. That's never going to be an easy series. Then we get the Dodgers and Yankees, and looked every bit like the flawed team we've been talking about since the offseason. Frankly, they filled none of the holes that we wanted them to in the offseason. And a couple stats since just July 1st I was looking at. Bullpen 5.7 ERA. It's even worse in a tighter window. I think it was a 7 ERA since the All-Star break. Kyle Schwarber hitting .214, 3 home runs, 18 hits since July 1st. We were riding high on him going into the All-Star break, home run leader. He's got guys catching up to him, and he's just having one of those funks that a true outcome type hitter, which he still is, will have. Bryce Harper hitting in the low 200s since July 1st. He's picked it up in the past week or so. And still getting no wins out of the 4th or 5th spot in the rotation. They did waste a good outing by Nola 2 starts ago. But, just every gaping hole that we knew was there but was being, covered up by, some Wheeler's comeback and Harper having a solid season, Schwarber going on a tear. And we haven't even talked yet about Trey Turner. We knew going into the trade deadline, certainly, that there wasn't just that one piece to go after.
Yeah.
I think I'd say that before the All-Star break, we talked about, at least I prioritized a not just a setup man, but a left-handed setup man. I thought we could get that particular and be ready to go to the World Series.
Sure.
Brad Keller goes down, now I'll take either side. But, by the time we got to the deadline, it's like we probably need 2 good relievers. We need a right-handed bat. We need an outfielder. We need a starting pitcher. We need a starting pitcher who could maybe be a bullpen guy if we need him to. Should we be sellers? I mean, I think that's where we were 2 days ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should we just, pack it up on this thing, at least for this year, salvage the veterans that were locked into big contracts with, preserve some prospects, and maybe shore up the farm system. But
Well,
obviously that didn't happen.
here's the thing. The emotional roller coaster that I talked about is just that. It's emotional. And you ride high from game to game, from inning to inning, and you're on board one day and you're off board the next. But if you take time and actually look at the big picture view of what has happened here, the Phillies have very clearly defined who they are. Of course they went 3-6 against the good teams. They're not as good as those teams. Of course they're beating up on the Nationals. They're better than them. The Phillies are exactly at the cream rises and it ends up in the middle. It's slightly above the middle. This team is exactly who I thought they were coming into the season. They're an 88-win team. They're going to make the playoffs probably. And they're not going to be as good as the Dodgers. They're not going to be as good as the Brewers. They're not going to be as good as the Braves. Does that mean they can't beat those teams? No. Anything can happen in a short series, and that's kind of the beauty of baseball. But this team has gone up and down and up and down and up and down just to end up exactly where I thought they would be at this point in the season. They're not as good as those other teams. They are flawed, but other than maybe the Dodgers, so is every other team. And you just got to hope that your guys kind of get hot at the right second. That being said, coming off of the trade deadline, I don't know that I've never seen a team improve so much in one area while perhaps simultaneously sacrificing just as much on the other end of the ball. They decided to move 4 of their 8 position players around in the middle of the season, which seemed completely unnecessary. The one they decided to leave there is the guy who is having an epically all-time bad fielding season. And they did all of this not to accommodate prime Ozzie Smith on the field, but to accommodate a guy who shouldn't even be playing second base in the first place.
I'm going to stop you there. I want to trust me. I want to rant about this repositioning of players in the wake of this Arraez trade. But let's go in sequence here. Yes. Like you said, we are an above average team. Basically the same type of team we thought we'd be early in the season. Of course, we were riled up thinking we could, take the division, get a first round bye, etc. Anything can happen early in the season. And we thought the trade deadline might get us that one missing piece. But they are currently 7.5 games back from the Braves. They're in the 8th inning against the Nationals right now, winning 4-0 as of the time of recording. Braves are playing the Marlins this week. They're probably going to be in that 6 to 8 games back range by the end of this week. A little too much. If you look at the Phillies' schedule, I think going out, they play a lot of good teams. Even the interleague teams, they're going to be playing the Rays at some point. They got a Minnesota team that decided to be buyers rather than sellers coming up. More division games, big series against the Braves in a week or two. So it's going to be, I think the division's probably out of reach, and I'm okay with that. They are currently tied for second in the wild card race with a lot of teams on their heels, and tied for second means basically tied for the last. You're squeaking in to the playoffs right now. My question, and what, in light of yesterday, is did the Phillies get better? All the flaws aside that we know are going to come with this trade and that predate this trade, these couple of trades, and also take a little bit of a look around the league, what the rest of the NL did. We don't have to get too in depth, but I think it's very fair to say the Cubs got much better. Yes. Added pitching that they desperately needed. Just a bunch of deals that just aren't big splashes, aren't going to make headlines, but make a lot of baseball sense and are going to make that team a true contender. They might not overcome the Brewers, but they're definitely going to be in the playoffs. The Braves got better in spots that they needed to, added a little bit of back-end pitching, added an outfielder, I believe it was Lane Thomas.
Yeah.
That should add some depth for them, and they're cruising. I mean, they've been in good shape in the driver's seat from the beginning of the season. I think we got to within 2.5 or 3 before the All-Star break, but that was it. Brewers are very solid. Didn't make a lot of moves, but Brewers can beat anybody because of the pitching they have and the style of baseball that they play.
Yeah.
I feel like we say that about them every year. Never quite broken into the World Series, but there's no reason to think they wouldn't contend and have a better chance to contend than we would. So let's get to these couple of trades that Dave Dombrowski did pull the trigger on yesterday.
Yeah.
First one, let's talk about the Brooks Raley from the Mets. Left-handed reliever. Pretty good stats this year so far, even though he's in a disaster of a New York Mets baseball team. 1.96 ERA. 40 strikeouts over 41 innings pitched from the left side. I mean, that's the piece that we're going to need to, hopefully bridge from whatever to Duran.
Yeah.
Any comment on that? I mean, that just seemed like a no-brainer. The Mets were selling everybody yesterday. Is there a reason not to think that he won't be, the solid bullpen piece that we lost in Brad Keller, or at least thought that we were signing in Brad Keller?
No, I mean, other than the fact that anytime you sign or trade for a reliever, there's a tacit, unspoken acknowledgement that relievers go up and down. They fluctuate. They have great years, then they have bad years, and he's one of the more consistent ones. But there's always some inherent risk in signing a reliever just because they're so unpredictable. But no, I mean, he's on paper a million times better than anything we had in kind of that middle relief role. And even if you include our air quotes high leverage guys right now, I think he slides right into being maybe other than Duran, the best piece in the bullpen, depending on how you feel about Kerkering. So no, I think it's a great move, and we gave up relatively nothing to get him. Seems like a pretty standard 2 lottery tickets for a proven middle reliever deal. I like it.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that's the one that no one can argue with whatsoever. Speaking of, just real quick, the unpredictability of relievers. Matt Strahm just released by the Royals with a 7+ ERA.
Yeah.
I mean, you really don't know year to year with bullpen pieces. That's just the roll of the dice that you make. Next one up is going to be the Arraez trade. And they got not just him, but another reliever that has upside for this season. He's projecting pretty well in spite of his 4.26 ERA. We got Caleb Killian, a right-hander who might be the other guy that could be a potential setup man. I feel a hell of a lot better about these two names that I just mentioned than I do about Orion Kerkering in any situation.
Yeah.
And a lot of control over him. A couple of years, I believe 5 years of control over that piece. You get Luis Arraez as a rental, a 2-month rental. He is, we know that, or at least we wanted Dombo to be going after him in the offseason. Ended up with a 1-year contract, which surprised a lot of people. But the narrative that I'm hearing is that he really wanted to bet on himself as a second baseman. And he was willing to take a prove-it contract with a team that was going to put him in that position. After playing first base for 2 years, he was at second years before that with Florida. But this is a guy that we could have had for nothing, essentially. We could have just signed him for the year. We could have made some defensive adjustments that we're about to talk about anyway now at the beginning of the season, when it would have made just as much sense, if not more, and would have given us a whole season to sort of cultivate guys in the positions that they are now going to be in. So, Pat, I'll let you I stopped you short on the consequences of Arraez, at least from the defensive side of the ball. Go off.
Well, but I mean, look, that's in order to be happy about this trade deadline, you have to ignore the elephant in the room, which is they filled holes that would have been much easier to fill with virtually the same players 4 months ago that we spoke about ad nauseum. You were one of the main Arraez guys I knew. Mm-hmm. And I was not. Now I am firmly in a beggars can't be choosers scenario. But he checks a lot of boxes that the rest of the team does not. Mainly the fact that he can make contact, and he's not a boring white guy. That's the part I was most fired up for at big hit tonight. Going yelling into the dugout and everything. Yeah, hook that
Yes,
up to my
indeed.
veins. And by the way, the real deal, not the Bryce Harper manufactured running out to right field and taking a bow. Bro, you were there 3 years ago. It's not what. What are we doing here? Um, I made a comment on the Phillies Instagram, and right before I got on, people started getting mad at me, because I just commented like this guy is so dramatic about everything, and some guys like, yeah, we love it. He's better than you fucking dick. I'm like, Jesus Christ, go to therapy. But no, I'm happy with the Arraez thing just because I couldn't keep watching them lose in the same way. I feel like now they might lose in different ways. The defense absolutely got worse, but it wasn't that good to begin with, if we're being honest. The part that's like so insane to me is that you are moving your borderline gold glove second baseman, the best defensive player you have on the field. You're moving him to a corner infield position, which is far less valuable defensively. I mean, he'll be fine over there, but it's like that's a spot where you bury somebody who's not a good defender typically. Bohm third to first is a lateral move. You're putting Harper back in the outfield, which I don't feel great about that. But you could just put Arraez at first and Harper in right. But Arraez is insistent, and they said that they made it clear when they were trading him, shopping him around. He wants to play second base. So I get it. Just all seems so unnecessary. But it's fresh blood. One thing I talked about on the last episode we did when you weren't here is like the season has peaks and valleys, and it felt like that Don Mattingly 40 to 50 game thing had reached its apex, and it felt like the All-Star game was the high point, and we were heading into a dip. And I ended up being right about that. Now I feel like you had to do something in order to start the upward mobility again, light a fire, and short of landing Tarek Skubal, I guess this is the best option out there on the market, even if it doesn't make the most sense on paper. I think on paper it would have made way more sense to get a Taylor Ward or somebody like that, but this one, has a higher upside, I guess. It just also has way more ways it could go wrong, I think.
Yeah, there's a couple things about this move that you got to take everything with a grain of salt. We're very unlikely to, even if we get to them, we're not going to beat the Dodgers. Certainly not in the state we were in 2 days ago. That roster's just not going to do it. There's just something about the addition of a guy like Arraez, and this is why I've been clamoring for him for 3 years, frankly, is how much of a differential he is within our lineup. We are a lineup that, you face good pitching, pretty much 1 to 9, you become, those true outcome hitters that are, just that's all you see now in baseball. You're not going to see guys just making contact, getting on base, fighting for that extra bag. It just doesn't happen with this lineup. They look like they're stuck in cement when they face good pitching. And there's no movement. It's either they're going to catch a fastball in the zone and hit it out of the park, or they're going to get shut out, or they're going to go 7 innings without hitting anything, and you hope to find a setup man on an off day and maybe mash him for an inning, and maybe that's how you squeeze out a win. We're all tired of that, and it's not going to get any better. Like we're not going to have that 3-week run where 6 of the 9 guys are on a hot streak. Like it just, we haven't seen it yet since 2022, and we're not going to see it now. Everybody is older. No one has gotten a new set of skills. What Arraez does in that lineup is he creates movement, and that's all I'm looking for. And it's baseball purism, fine, but the difference that we already see in these first 8 innings of the game we just watched against the Nationals is already evident. He doesn't strike out. He works counts. He's not afraid of a 2-strike count. Just his swing. He can hit lefties and righties. He doesn't ground into double plays. All of those things mean that when he comes up to bat, especially if you have any base runners, you're going to have movement in the play. You're going to have a chance to get one base, maybe an extra one. Something chaotic can happen. You can make them play defense against you. Just you force things that the lineup as is just doesn't do. They're so easy and predictable. And just that little bit of chaos and skill that he brings, advanced metrics might not show him to be such a valuable player as I see him. But I know what he can do in the context of this lineup, and it gives us a chance to do something crazy in October. It gives us a chance to have balls bounce our way and series won by a hair that we didn't have 2 days ago. And I would have had no interest in watching another playoff run with the Phillies in the state that they were prior to this trade.
Well, I mean, look, the thing is, yes, before the trade, they're a tough team to watch. They're a tough team to watch. Even when they were on that incredible run, I asked myself frequently, is this team actually any good? Or are we just dealing with smoke and mirrors here? And I still don't know the answer to that. The one thing I do know is that they have 3 really good starting pitchers. And if you look at their record in games that Sanchez, Wheeler, and Luzardo have started, it is elite. If you look at their record in games that anyone else has started, it is terrible. I'll circle back to that in a minute. But the point is, those 3 pitchers would give them a chance, at least theoretically, to win any playoff series. Even against the Dodgers, I'm not saying it would be a great chance, but there would be a chance. But what Arraez does is he lengthens the lineup. Alec Bohm is going to he's going to drive me crazy no matter where you have him. But I'd rather have him hitting 7th than 5th. He's not down there yet, but he will be. He will be by the end they have to move him down. I can't, even 5th, I can't do this anymore. We got to get him out of there. Put Real Muto there, anybody. Derek Hill, I don't care. Literally anybody, get Alec Bohm out of the top 5 slots of the lineup. Brandon Marsh as a cleanup hitter is fine. Brandon Marsh as a 6 hitter is better. By adding another hitter in the top, it lengthens things. It gives the lineup a new look. And it is bizarre that we have collectively decided, because it's not just the Phillies, by the way. Luis Arraez was available to 30 teams, and he ended up getting 1 year and $12 million, despite having, 3 batting titles?
Mm-hmm.
He has an elite skill set. And it is very bizarre that baseball in its entirety just decided that this skill set is somehow useless now. I do not understand it. Even if you want to say we think we prefer to value on base percentage and, slug and everything like that, the guy, by virtue of a .330 batting average, is going to have a pretty good on-base percentage. Certainly better than you're getting out of a Justin Crawford. Certainly better than you're getting out of an Alec Bohm. The idea that nobody thought this guy could be an upgrade is pretty bizarre to me, and I'm glad that he is on the team. They still have massive holes. I think if we talk about the trade deadline, I think it's just as important to talk about the deals that they didn't make as it is to talk about the ones that they did. But to button this section up, my final thought, and then I want to hear what you have to say. The trades that they made, I like them because Raley is just an obvious yes for me. And then Arraez, why not? Gotta try something. That's my take on that.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about the deals they didn't make too, because there's basically 2 types of rosters you have to think about in baseball these days, especially if you're not a lock to win your division. You have to think about what does my full rotation look like to get me into the playoffs, and like you alluded to very pointedly, 40% of our games are dog shit, because we don't have a 4th or 5th starter. Games are lost within the first 4 innings and with no chance of recovery. But if I look at what we got yesterday and what could that translate to in a 3, 5, or 7 game series, I see a lot more things to be confident about, or at least think that we have a fighting chance because of the 3 starters that we have, because I now am not looking at a abyss from the 6th inning to the 9th inning if our starter gets knocked out at that point, with just, again, dog shit in the bullpen. I mean, Jonathan Bolin has held it together But now I feel like we got two more guys, and obviously I haven't seen them pitch in a Phillies uniform yet. But I now have hope that we can somehow piece together those couple of soft innings to get to Duran and win a game that we hopefully can build a lead in. I think that the most telling thing was what Dombo said. I believe, I don't know if it was late last night or this morning. He literally said we just ran out of time to get a starting pitcher. So it's at least validating to know that he was seeing the same problem we were, that we probably should pick up a starter of some type, whether it's with the intent of just not being Andrew Painter or Aaron Nola, or someone who with upside could allow us to have a long man come playoff time or come September games when we need it. There were guys out there that were gotten for very little. Once again, it always seems like it's the Giants and the Padres the past couple years that have just found things easy to make in terms of transactions for players that we just seem to just swing and miss on. I don't understand it. I mean, between the Arraez contract, the Bader contract last year for the Giants, multiple free agents that the Padres have been able to get for prospects that are all lottery tickets. They picked up Casey Mize and Robbie Ray for not much. I mean, you really look at these are prospect hauls, and who the hell knows if any of them will pan out. I think the Phillies farm system has a bad enough rap as it should, as being more likely, a loser of a lottery ticket. But you just wonder if Dombo has these conversations. Like, the only thing that was leaked out was what we offered for Skubal, which I actually thought was maybe too much. Crawford, Gage Wood, and somebody else for a rental for a starter when we already have the three that we have. I don't know. It just feels like Dombo shows his ass sometimes with some of these quotes after the fact, and I don't know. He's lucky he even got what he did, if that's the kind of fumbling that he does.
We ran out of time is like, dude, miss me with that bullshit.
Unacceptable.
I can't hear it, man.
Yeah.
Do you mean you ran out of time at the deadline or in the off season, or because you realize there was so much time for you to get a guy? I mean, we talked about it every week leading up to the season. They need another guy. And, everybody, and look, I tend to get extra bitter because I live in LA and I got to watch the Dodgers get every guy. And the Phillies are like, we couldn't get any of them. And the Dodgers are like, we got all of them. But, like, everybody's going to point to Tarek Skubal going to the Dodgers. And I get it. I fully understand, right? The Dodgers needed another starter in early May. They went out and traded cash for Eric Lauer. He's made 10 starts for them. He's undefeated. They have not lost in any of his starts.
Wow.
Now, look, I'm not saying it's that easy. You go out and get a guy and he turns into Sandy Koufax. I get it. But the point is they knew, and this is a team with an abundance of resources that could have easily been justified in pulling up a C-level prospect and being like, you fill the 6th spot in the rotation, because they have 6 people in the rotation. And we got Snell coming back, and we got Glasnow coming back, and we're going to be fine. We're going to win this division running away no matter what. It doesn't matter. But they were like, no, let's go out and get a guy that can, give us some innings and get us to where we need to be and everything like that. And they went out and got a guy, and he did exactly that. And this entire time I have watched the Phillies go into this season. The plan, this is the thing that drives me nuts, the plan was to go into the season with Christopher Sanchez, Jesus Luzardo, Aaron Nola, whose ERA was 6 last year, Andrew Painter, who has never thrown more than 45 innings in a season, Taijuan Walker, who has been washed since the moment you got him, and Zach Wheeler, who's coming off of a potentially catastrophic and unpredictable injury. That was the plan. And the plan was, let's just hope it goes well. And you know what? The fact that Wheeler has come back and pitched as well as he has, it's gone better, frankly, than I think they could have expected.
You're
But
right.
they did nothing to cover themselves in the event of this emergency. Not even an emergency, just a predictable situation where Walker still stinks, Nola still stinks, and Painter did not automatically blossom into the guy. So I hate to hear we ran out of time. You might have run out of time specifically on this, but if you hadn't painted yourself into this corner, it wouldn't be an issue. You had so much more time.
Yeah, I just there's so many examples. We could probably list 25 of them between the off season and this deadline that you could have picked up for peanuts. That would just shore up or give. Those are lottery tickets too. If
Sure.
one out of four of them worked out, we would have 5 more wins than we do, and have a chance to keep that pace for the rest of the season. Um, you know the starting situation, so we have to look at what we have right now with the rotation. So Andrew Painter did have, I'd say, an impressive outing. 6 innings the other night. Gave up 2 runs on the first 2 batters of the game. Had the same mechanical look that he did when he was, getting sent down, falling off the mound, coming across his body, and he fixed it. That one mound visit seemed to be a reminder. He made the tweak that they've talked about. It's actually quite easy to see visually once you look for it.
Yep.
And he carried it through 6 innings, and I'll sit on that hope. I think he starts again tomorrow. But yeah, we're gonna. That's what we got. There really is no other option for a 5th starter. And like I said, we're hanging on to the last playoff spot right now. I don't want to make every 5th day a scheduled loss because I'm already dealing with every 4th day.
Right.
Aaron Nola.
Yeah.
So, do you think we can string enough wins to keep this pace? I mean, there are other teams out there that can catch fire. There's the Arizonas of the world. I am nervous about missing the playoffs if that's the starting rotation situation we're going to be in for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and that's assuming that those top 3 guys continue to pitch at that level.
Yep.
I mean, that seems like a big ask of those guys. But also, I have to assume there is going to be some positive regression, some, scenario where somebody has a good few weeks. Maybe it's Andrew Painter. I have to assume that even if you just ride out Nola and Painter through the end of the year, their ERAs are not going to be 6 and 7 respectively. Maybe they will, and I certainly would not have bet on that. If I was in Dombo's shoes, I would have gotten another starter by any means necessary. It seems like they were like, we were in on Scooble, and then I guess that's it. I think it's ridiculous that they are relying on Nola or Painter. That being said, if they're relying on Nola and Painter, they're not going to continue to win games at a 25% clip or whatever they've been doing with those guys. It's just there's too much talent in the lineup. They're going to accidentally win more than 25%. So, but I am worried about the playoffs. I don't love a lot of the teams in the wild card race outside of the Cubs. I think there's a lot of teams that are deeply flawed. But you know how this is, man. Every year, 1 or 2 teams in that wild card race is going to get hot at the end.
Right.
And it's either going to be the Phillies or it's going to be somebody else. And, it's a crapshoot. At this point, there's really not a lot to kind of break down going forward. There's not much you could do. You can move the puzzle pieces around a little bit, but it's still going to form the same picture. I mean, we just got to hope against hope because Lord knows that's what Dave Dombrowski is doing. If his strategy is to close his eyes and pray, who am I to come up with a different one?
It couldn't be more clear that he is doing it, maybe even more naively than we are. He did make a comment, another one, just to tie up the Dombo thing. Letting us know that Aaron Nola specs out as the 75th best pitcher in baseball, and what are we to complain about? Not even going to go any deeper into that. But
I didn't hear that quote. 75th by what metric?
it's by some metrics, I think he said. I don't even think he pointed out anything in particular.
Sure.
But yeah, 75th best pitcher, and let's just be proud of that. I'm not
With
going to say what rank he is in payroll, but
with statistics and rhetoric like that, I look forward to Dombrowski's presidential run in 2032.
couldn't agree more. Or let him go build a new franchise in Nashville, whatever his plan is. Yeah, so I tying up the starting pitching thing. A couple little scares have happened in the past couple weeks. I worry about Sanchez and Wheeler having dead arm lulls that are long enough at any point in the season to, put us on the edge of missing the playoffs. I mean, that's a concern. 2 starts ago, Wheeler's velocity was down about 3 miles an hour on his fastball. He was getting just shelled. He obviously was cool and collected afterwards. Didn't sound any alarms. But it was stark enough to think: is he cooked, or is he in a dead arm spot where we got to rest him for? He's 36 years old. He's coming off an insane surgery that people don't usually come back and pitch to this level.
Right.
So that was a scare. He came back for that goofy rain delay game in Baltimore. Looked like he was true to form in the first 2 innings. That I think we're all just going to say, okay, that's who he is, and that's who he'll continue to be. But I'm going to be a little worried about that. I'm going to be watching his first 2 innings moving forward, no doubt.
Sure.
And same thing with Sanchez. I think we both kind of hit the panic button on a couple starts in the past 6 weeks or so. His past 2, I believe, he's looked quite good. But yeah, we just can't afford that. And that sucks to be in that spot. I mean, you want to whip your horses in October, but you don't want to have to whip them in August and September too. You'd like to have.
They put themselves there, and not just by the things that we talked about earlier. It's kind of an embarrassment that nobody in AAA is like really capable of coming up and making a spot start and keeping the team in the game. Like this is it's an organizational failure from top to bottom. But yeah, I mean, let's just be very, very clear here. If any of those 3 guys, Sanchez, Wheeler, or Luzardo, miss any time, we're fucked.
Yeah.
We're fucked.
And we've been saying this since January, when it was clear they weren't going to do much else in the offseason. I mean, it's incredible how healthy this overall team has been. We've talked about this before. They don't deserve to be as successful as they've been the past couple years with the level of health they've had.
And listen, I regret the fact that we were not able to record during the time period where Harper was calling out Dombo and being like, we need help. And, that was in response to Dombo calling out Harper with the not elite thing. I have to say, that has been a twist on the season that I did not expect. At the beginning of the year, I was like, oh, I know this. This is 2012. This is the 2012 Phillies. They're cooked. It kind of snuck up on us a little bit. Couple injuries. They got old. They're cooked. They're done. And then Mattingly came in and they started winning a lot. And I'm like, well, this isn't 2012, but I can't figure out what it is. Like, I know I've seen it before, but I can't put my finger on it. And then I realized exactly what this season is. And my wife, lovely woman. She's great. She is one of those, mentally ill people that, and I could say that because she doesn't listen to this podcast, so it's fine. She watches Bravo all day. She is obsessed with it, and she goes to the conventions. She waits in lines to meet these lunatics. And then she sends me studies that show that people who watch Bravo actually have a higher intellect than people who... And I have to pretend like that's normal. I'm like, yeah, of course. Yeah. But in my head, I'm like, oh, she's completely insane, right? But I've seen enough of these shows to know that that's what this year's Phillies have been. They are the Real Housewives of Philadelphia. I've never quite experienced this with a Philly team before. And it's different, and I don't hate it. but it's just weird. I mean, Harper is so dramatic about everything. Um, and it's all manufactured too. That's the thing. These reality shows, like, they're not real, like that. Like, the producers have to go to them and be like, "Hey, ratings are down. It would really be nice if you threw a glass of wine in your friend's face tonight." Not telling you have to, but like, just get loaded and see what happens. And, that is what this Phillies team feels like. Everything Harper does feels pre-produced. You had the Castellanos thing, which, by the way, he's the one that doesn't need the production note. He's just he's crazy. They came to him and they were like, "Yeah, if you," and he's like, "I got it. Just hit record. I'll be fucking insane." So between the Castellanos Rob Thompson thing at the beginning of the year, then you have Dombrowski and Harper. It felt like Dombrowski was forcing it to like push Harper's buttons. Then you have the normal docile housewife, Zach Wheeler, who's like, "Well, now I'm pissed about everything, and how dare Don Mattingly take me out at 4 2/3, and how dare you guys not put me on the All-Star team?" And he starts, and I didn't get to say this at the time, because by the time we recorded, I'm like, it doesn't matter, why am I going to say this? But he was acting like a psycho over that All-Star thing. We all pretended like he was justified in all of his actions. He wasn't. He looked insane. I'm glad he didn't pitch in the All-Star game. He forced Mattingly into a corner where Mattingly had to sit there and be like, "No, I would love it if he pitched on Sunday and then again in the All-Star game coming off thoracic outlet syndrome." Nobody wanted that. But if Mattingly didn't do it, then Wheeler would be like, "I've earned Mattingly's support." It's been so dramatic the entire time. All the way down to today, Bryce Harper taking a bow in right field, and it just feels like, oh my God, I can't wait for the reunion with Andy Cohen at the end of the year. It's kind of embarrassing to watch, but as long as they win, I'm fine with it.
You're making me so happy with this rant. I'm so surprised by it. I love it. Shout out to Tiff for getting you attuned to reality TV the way that she did. I've talked about this a lot the past couple months with my lady friend. She's a Bravo aficionado as well. And I've had the same realizations that you have, not necessarily the comparison to the Phillies of the season, but, and we don't have to go too far into this, and I'll duck when I say this in some audiences. Sports for guys like us, and Bravo for our lady counterparts, it's the same fucking soap opera.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's low stakes in real terms, but you can get it as invested and let it affect your day as much as you want, and it does. And it's just as interesting if you do get into the characters and the plot lines. It's incredible. That was awesome, Pat. I love that, and they are like that this year. I want to get into Bryce Harper.
Let me just say real quick to piggyback off that, just real quick. For me to sit here on the podcast and be like, "Oh, my wife is mentally ill," tongue in cheek, and I'm not saying I don't mean it, but by the same token, she could easily say that about me, because she reminds me of today.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's like, "Do you remember the week where you were just a total dick to me the entire week?" And I'm like, Ryan Howard tore his Achilles on the last play of the season. And in my mind,
yeah,
that justifies it. So I'm just as insane as she is. It's just in a different lane. And,
it's a beautiful way that we've resolved the battle of the sexes right here on this podcast. Bryce Harper, I'm glad you brought him up before that we got into reality TV. A couple things about how he fits into this post-trade deadline configuration and the decisions that have been made or not made. I want to say, look, how we both feel this way about Harper. Everything he does is calculated, performative in some measure, but it is tough to argue that on the field he gives exactly what he's paid to give, and then some. I'd say over the course of his contract so far. I am impressed that he, got right out in front. In addition to saying we need help, was like, I'll move to right field. I'll move back to right field. Volunteered to do that. I don't think there's a lot of guys in his role on their team that would offer that. And when asked, would say yes. So he deserves credit for just always kind of being up for, putting him wherever in the field to help the team. I appreciate that. But I do wonder if one was to take the heat off his boy Trey Turner, or if even if it wasn't with that motive, forced a couple of decisions here that are the wrong ones. The biggest concern I have, first and foremost, just in isolation, Harper moving to right field. He's 33 years old now. He's been playing first base. He moved to first base because he had Tommy John surgery, because he threw his arm out in right field. He's always had a history of being too aggressive at the wrong times in right field. I remember way back in the day, Larry Boa was working for the Nationals when he was brought up as a rookie and screaming at him for ramming into the wall in practice. Like, just telling him, yo, buddy, you got to understand how to throttle this because we are invested in you, and that's not what you got to do.
Yeah.
I don't need him running into the wall, unless it's a game-winning thing in a pivotal game. It's just not worth it. This is the cornerstone of our franchise, no matter what your opinion is of him. And we're putting him out with way more risk of injury at a time when I'm not sure it's even the best move for this team this season. So there we are. I don't know what your thoughts are about his motives there, but I just think it's the wrong move. And then we can get to the rest of the moves that kind of fall as dominoes behind that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it's the wrong move. As far as his motives go, I think it's twofold. I think some of it is selfless, but I think he enjoys being selfless because of how it makes him look, which in turn is
enjoys
selfish.
Looking selfless as much as he likes. Yeah, there's no altruism here.
Yeah, yeah. And I get it. It's whatever. Like, at the end of the day, he was willing to move, and he certainly didn't have to be. But it is 100% the wrong move. Here is what I would hope, and maybe Bryce is one of these guys who's like, look, if you move me to right field, I want to play right field the rest of the season. I don't want you moving me back and forth. But I still think there is a world where Brian De La Cruz or Derek Hill gives you just as much offensively as you're getting out of Alec Bohm, and allows Bryce Harper to remain at first. So what I would love to see over these next few weeks, I give Harper a couple starts at first and put one of those other guys in right field. If Harper is amenable to that, like I say, if he behind closed doors was like, look, I don't want to go back and forth. I get it. I respect that. But to me, I would much rather have Bryce at first and just try to ride a hot hand in right. And I'm so over Alec Bohm. That's mostly what.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were saying about Bohm. I can't have him in the fifth hole. I don't see any reason not to try to ride a De La Cruz, Hill's hitting more home runs than Bohm is too. But you put those guys in the 5 spot, especially De La Cruz, if he's, doing well in that given week. He's got the pop that you want in the 5 hole. That's the guy that you want there in that situation. You don't want Alec Bohm, who is still grounding in the double plays and can't hit the ball out of the ballpark.
Yeah, I'm over it, and frankly, even if you get the same exact production out of the merry-go-round of right fielders that you're getting out of Bohm, you're gaining a lot defensively by moving Harper back to first. So I have a feeling it's not going to happen. I think that they're all in on the Harper and right field thing. But in the event that, let's say, Arraez, and I guess next year Bohm is gone regardless, and even if you re-sign Arraez, you can move Harper back to the infield. It seems like so many of these moves were made to appease Luis Arraez, Trey Turner, and Alec Bohm and it was like we're bending over backwards for kind of the wrong guys. And I'm not sure that it makes our team better. Tonight, the Phillies go into the ninth inning with a 5-0 lead, and Harper comes out for defensive purposes. If nothing else, move him into first base and take out Alec Bohm for defensive purposes. I can't
Exactly.
have Bryce Harper coming out of playoff games.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's
Um,
that shit crazy.
so yeah, we got to do something about that. Will they? No, I don't think they will, but they should.
And how do you feel about the treatment of Bryson Stott? I'm just like befuddled by how passed over he is for Trey Turner. I've heard a million reasons they want to wait until this off season. They don't like the way that the precedent that sets. I don't even know what people are talking about anymore. Like bending over backwards to keep Trey Turner at shortstop when Bryson Stott is a better shortstop, and shortstop is the most important defensive position on the baseball field. Why keep him at second? Why keep Trey Turner at short when there's just so many other options that would make us a better defensive team and not lose anything in the lineup? I don't get it.
I think it has to be that they have absolutely zero confidence that Trey Turner can switch to the outfield in the middle of the season.
Did they also have the same lack of confidence that he could play second? I mean, I've been saying this for 3 years also. Why aren't they swapped?
Arraez is playing second.
Understood, but I'm saying even before this, I mean, we didn't talk about it much during the season, but in the offseason we certainly did. I really don't get it. I can't fathom why you wouldn't have those two flip if you're trying to win baseball games. It makes no sense to me.
For sure, I don't view it necessarily as disrespect to Bryson Stott. I think the reality of the situation is, and I hate to say this because Bryson Stott was one of my, Toyota picks to click or whatever the fuck in the offseason. Like, I expected of the three daycare guys, I didn't expect it to be Marsh. I thought Stott was going to be the one who took the step forward. But the fact of the matter is, he's been a big leaguer for 5 seasons now. He has not really taken any steps forward on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, he's a good fielder, but when you're a good fielder who hits 250 with a 700 OPS, you know what you are? You're a utility guy.
Or at least a middle infielder. You're not a corner infielder with those numbers.
Oh, listen, I agree. You're weakening. If you look at the production you're now getting out of different positions, it's like you have an underachieving third baseman, you have an underachieving first baseman. You just weaken yourself, across the board in that way.
Yeah.
But if you are going to be, I thought Bryson Stott's ceiling was an all-star level, everyday second baseman. It turns out his ceiling might be Tommy Edman. His ceiling might be a guy who is very useful and every winning team wants him, but he is not one of the main guys on any of the rosters. And if that's what he is, that's fine, but I can't sit here and be like, oh, it's disrespectful to him. He had a chance, in my mind, over the last 5 years to improve his game and make himself undeniable to the point where it's like, well, we got our second baseman for the next decade, and nothing's going to change that. He didn't do that, so he's kind of the odd man out. I don't think it makes the team better, but I don't view it as some, slight to Bryson Stott or think that he deserves better.
Fair. On the other side of the ball, in the wake of the Arraez trade, is probably the last thing we should talk about here. The batting order. What would you want, ideally? We've talked about this on numerous text threads. We obviously have the first glimpse of some kind of plan on tonight's lineup, which, by the way, let's just talk about the top 4. They had Schwarber leading off, Trey Turner in the 2-hole, Bryce Harper in the 3, and Luis Arraez in cleanup. I have a lot of opinions about this, as I'm sure you do. How would you be configuring those 4 guys? Because it's pretty clear that those should be the top 4 in some order.
Yeah. I'm so sick of talking about the batting order because I just, they're not going to do any of it anyway. So it's like I can't think of any exercise that feels more futile. That being said, let's do it. Tonight was a weird one because they faced a left-handed starter who, and I missed the first couple innings. I assume was an opener, and Zach Littell was the bulk guy.
Yeah, they gave him three batters, the opener. They
Right.
brought Littell in, and Littell, by the time I left the TV to record, he'd retired 10 of our guys in a row.
So typically, that's going to be the scenario. So it's tough for me to evaluate this lineup, specifically the fact that they had Brandon Marsh hitting seventh. In other words, if they had just been starting Zach Littell in a more traditional sense, would Marsh have been higher up in the order? I sure hope so. What I would say is Marsh has proven this year that he can hit lefties. He's certainly fallen off with that recently, but he has at least shown that he deserves to be, in my mind, an everyday player. Schwarber mashes lefties, so it's not an issue. Arraez hits lefties. I don't want to have 10 lefties in a row, but, to me, I would go 4 out of the top 5 spots are lefties, and I would put Turner in the 3-hole to break them up. That would be my move. Simply because that means a left-handed reliever has to face 3 batters. So whether you bring him in for the top of the lineup, which to me would be Arraez leading off, Schwarber hitting second, Turner third, and then Harper fourth, Marsh fifth. If you bring in a lefty to face either of those left-handed lanes, Arraez and Schwarber, or Harper and Marsh, he is going to have to face either Trey in the 3-hole or Realmuto or Bohm or whoever you end up putting sixth. You're kind of forcing their hand a little bit by doing that. I think it makes more sense to have Arraez towards the top of the lineup. But they hit him, clean up today, which is an indicator to me that that's probably where he's going to end up. But that would be my ideal lineup. Arraez, Schwarber up top, and you could flip-flop them if necessary. Put Schwarber in the 3-hole because other than speed, Turner doesn't really possess anything that makes him more of a leadoff hitter than a 3-hole hitter. He kind of hits like a 3-hole hitter when he's going good, and when he's going bad, he hits like a 9-hole hitter. So what difference does it make?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd put him third, and then I would put Harper and Marsh 4 and 5, and then kind of ride the hot hand at 6, and then pray for 7, 8, and 9.
Okay, sound logic. I just can't fathom why Schwarber wouldn't be behind the guys getting on base in front of him. I'm so sick of solo home runs on this team, and it's been that way for years now. I just feel like more than any other squad, we just hit them out with no ducks on the pond. And a guy like Arraez and Turner, when he's on, and Harper, they get on base. And the basic logic of that will never be overridden for me. I would love my ideal batting order is Trey, followed by Harper in the 2-hole, Arraez in the 3-hole, Schwarber cleaning up. I think that limits the solo home run, as being the best outcome in a given inning. I like the chaos that Arraez can bring in the 3-hole with Turner and or Harper in front of him on the base paths, and leaving Schwarber, who doesn't need protection. I trust Kyle Schwarber when he is swinging it right, lefty, righty, any situation will get a hold of one, no matter what. So that's what I want to see. But like you said, we're not.
But then who it's fifth in your lineup?
Fifth in my lineup is like a Dela Cruz. Truly. Whoever that guy is in that given week, and I do hope it's Dela Cruz. I was kind of high on him. I was glad they signed him in the offseason. Just that, masher who, you just got to be careful of. You pitch around Schwarber, you might be punished. I don't think there's any thought of that when you pitch around Schwarber to get to an Alec Bohm. So that's a situation I want to avoid. Lefty righty is really out the door these days, at least with this team. And we do have a couple guys who are lefties who hit both sides. And, we just got to appreciate that and utilize it as best we can. But that's where I am with the batting order.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm operating from a place of I've given up on the idea that they ever want Kyle Schwarber to hit anything other than a solo homer. I don't get the rationale, but that seems to be what they want. Take my lineup if we're going with I could do whatever I want and flip-flop Harper and Schwarber. I got Harper 2, Turner 3, Schwarber 4. I do still think it's important to break up the lefties, not because I don't think that any of those guys can't handle lefties, but more because I want the lefty to have to, it happened out here a couple years ago when they were originally, I forget the exact thing, but they moved Freddie Freeman in the lineup. And they actually moved him back to sandwich in between two righties because I think he was hitting right after Ohtani or something like that. And I remember Dave Roberts' quote is, if you bring in a righty, you have to pay the Freddie Freeman tax.
Right.
And
it's all about forcing that move. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think that that would be if they had anybody that I felt like was a true platoon masher of lefties, and Edmundo Sosa has been this at times. He has not been this year, so it's kind of useless.
Yeah.
But yeah, then to me, sure, throw Marsh kind of in there and just be ready to pinch hit for him if necessary. That's another thing that I wish they had gotten at the trade deadline. I look at the Cubs getting a guy like Tyrone Taylor for nothing, and I'm just that seems like something every contender should have is a guy who it's your only job is to hit lefties, and maybe Derek Hill can be that guy. I don't know. But I guess we'll see. I think the important thing is no matter what we want, they will not do it. And the other thing that I'll hope for, I'll just say this, regardless of what the batting order is, I thought Bryce Harper came out and had 2 really strong plate appearances tonight. Maybe the fresh blood of having Luis Arraez behind him gives him new life and makes him approach things differently. Trey Turner had 3 hits. I won't chalk that up to Arraez because I think he is just one of the streakiest players, Turner, that we've ever seen. Yeah. And he's on a hot one right now, so just ride that as long as you can. But it did seem to transform that middle of the lineup. So my hope is that regardless of the order, Arraez makes everybody around him a little bit better.
Yeah, just by virtue of looking at pitches, I just think it gets the guy on deck in a different mindset. I really do think that kind of stuff happens in the course of a game. I find such value in that, whether that's on paper or not. We are over the hour mark, Pat. It's been a fucking blast as always, but this is there's just what more can you ask for if you're not going to have a true World Series favorite? At least something that could happen. Some things to get excited about, some new characters to watch next episode to keep that metaphor going. At any rate, we are the Specific Jawns podcast. I hope you do subscribe, and share on whatever platform you see fit, whether it's Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, etc. Thanks so much for joining us. We will be back next week. My buddy Pat and I signing off. Go Phils.
Go Phils.